When I first started work on this sermon, I Googled something like art and sermons. Yeah, to see if I could find a salient quotation from which to begin. And this is what came forth. Art does not take kindly to facts, is helpless to grapple with theories, and is killed outright by a sermon. And so, here goes. Today is Created to Create Sunday, and so we begin by focusing on God as our Creator. The very first words in Genesis, as you just heard, are words of His creation. You know them. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Jerry Samia beautifully illustrated this very text, which you can see for yourself after this service in the Church on the Cape Art Gallery. It is a jaw-dropper. And then we look at the words in the last book of the Bible in Revelation chapter 21, and again we read words of creation. Behold, I make all things new. At the beginning of time, at the end of time, and all the time in between, God is creating. Out of chaos, He is making order. Out of confusion, He is weaving a design. Out of dissonance, He is creating a pattern. Creation, God. God, recreation. The words are coterminous. God is creation. And we see it everywhere. We see His creation in the spangled heavens, infinite in time and place, which we sang about this morning. And we see it in insects, which are virtually microscopic. Yet, regardless of size, we invariably learn about who the Creator is by experiencing whatever it is He created. Through nature, we experience His reliability. In planting perennials, we know what flowers to expect where in the springtime. His orderliness. In studying the constellations, we know where in the sky to find certain patterns of stars. His dependability. If we've scheduled an Easter sunrise service, we know precisely where we can count on the sun rising, right down to the minute. Reliability, dependability, predictability. But beyond those features, should I say faithfulness? We can know, judging by the sheer beauty of His creation, God's utter magnificence as well. The truly wonderful thing is that made in His image, we too are made to create. And when successful, our creations, like His, reflect a sense of order and our perception of beauty. Sister Helen Prégine is a nun who served as a prison chaplain in Louisiana for death row inmates. And she became somewhat well known after she was portrayed in the movie Dead Man Walking. And this is what she wrote about the God-given urge for creatures to create. Quote, I met a man on death row in Arizona who had nothing. So he would unravel his socks and weave crosses out of the threads. Another death row inmate gave me a picture frame he had made out of gum wrapper foils. These inmates were locked in a cell 23 out of 24 hours a day. They had nothing. Yet still, they were reaching out to do as their Creator does, to create beauty and worth amongst themselves. We, all of us, have been blessed with the desire to create. And so, my question of the day is one that only you can answer. And that is, if you were to think of the rest of your life as on canvas, how would you paint? Joan Sutter offers us guidelines in a collage she gave me several years ago. This is Joan Sutter's work. She titled it Painting Tips. And borrowing some of her pointers, I'm going to rename the words that she has on her canvas. And I'm going to call them living tips, giving you 4. Number 1, figure out a color scheme, Joan says. Will you opt primarily for tans or grays or black? Or will you opt for bright colors, oranges, or yellows? In other words, figure out what your overriding attitude will be. About 10 years before he died, I went to hear Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning, at a lecture in Boston. And I remember the main point he made that evening is one that is still so often cited and credited to him. And that is that even if everything is taken from us, we, for the most part, still have the freedom to choose our own attitude in any given set of circumstances. So decide on your color scheme, says Joan. Number 2, focus on big shapes first. Details can come last. In other words, don't let yourself get bogged down by the trivial. God, in creating you, made you for his purposes. So don't sell him or yourself short. This past week, I was on my way to distribute a poster for the Cargo Shop Fair when I stopped in to see Bob and Dottie King. They cordially invited me inside their home when, before very long, Bob cut right to the quick and asked, "Do you have any thoughts on how we can eliminate extreme poverty in the world?" You did, didn't you? And coming from Bob, you know that that was not meant as a rhetorical question. He wants to know. And more than that, he wants to do anything he can to offer God his help along those lines. That's what it means to focus on big shapes first. Number 3, shadows help connect shapes. Yesterday, there was a wonderful article in the Portland Press Herald which paid homage to former First Lady Betty Ford, who died at the age of 93. And she was heralded for many things, for saying things that First Ladies just don't say, and for taking public stands whether or not she thought they would be well received. Yet she was most heralded for her courage in sharing her life's shadows, be they health challenges in the form of breast cancer, or her own personal struggles with drug and alcohol addiction. Whatever the struggle, it was former President George H.W. Bush who spoke for many when he stated that because of her honesty and fortitude, and I quote, "We all learned from the challenges she faced." Point 3, remember that your shadows can help make connections for each other. God can use your narrowness to expand others' thoughts. He can use your blindness to create vision. And he can use your weakness to develop strength. And fourth, Joan on this collage gave 12 tips, but I'm going to stop with 4. Otherwise, this sermon really would be guilty of murder. So I will just go to the concluding point, which is focus the viewer's eye. It was an elderly lady in a prayer group who helped focus the eyes of the author of the hymn we are about to sing. Her name was Adelaide A. Pollard, and she hailed from Bloomfield, Iowa. Has anyone here ever been to Bloomfield, Iowa? Have you? No. At any rate, it was her heart's desire to go to Africa to serve there as a missionary. But the necessary funds were not forthcoming, and so Pollard found herself experiencing, and I quote her, distress of the soul. Feeling very discouraged, she attended this prayer meeting. They went around in a circle, but as the circle prayed, she took to heart one prayer of an old woman. Reportedly, this woman said, "It really doesn't matter what you do with us, Lord. Just have your own way." Those words made an impact, a huge impact, and with a significant change of disposition, Pollard went home and that night penned all 4 stanzas of the hymn we are going to sing. Did she ever get to Africa? Yes, she did, but only for a very short while. Most of her ministry, she discovered, was right back in the USA and in Scotland. Point 4, focus your eye on the Creator who created you for a purpose. And so we have it. Your one and only canvas is before you now. The question is, how will you paint it? Amen.